Kane Merrick chose Lyra's station for one simple reason. It was supposed to be boring. The navigation charts called the planet Lyrison civilized, stable, and very unlikely to explode while a ship refueled. At Kane's age, that counted as luxury. His freighter settled onto the landing pad with a tired metallic groan. The hull ticked softly as it cooled, like the ship itself was complaining about another forgettable stop at the edge of someone else's empire. Kane rolled his shoulders, scratched the faded tattoo on the back of his neck, and mentally listed supplies. Coolant, protein packs, something edible that didn't taste like recycled regret. The spaceport market was exactly what wealthy planets like to show visitors. Clean floors, bright lights, crowds that moved with purpose instead of fear. Holographic advertisements floated above stalls selling things no one strictly needed. Kane blended in easily. Drifters always did. Half-zipped jacket, scuffed boots, relaxed posture. The quiet stance of a man who expected trouble but refused to invite it. He paused at a stall selling glowing fruit that pulsed faintly like it might be alive. It probably was. "Does this dissolve stomach lining?" Kane asked the vendor. "Only if improperly prepared." "That's not comforting." Then the crowd shifted. At first it was subtle. Conversations dipped. Footsteps slowed. A ripple passed through the market like someone had sucked the air out of the room. Kane sighed. "Please don't be an inspection," he muttered. He looked up and froze. At the far end of the concourse walked a woman surrounded by armored guards. Her presence didn't demand attention. It stole it. Pale skin almost luminous under the market lights, long black hair flowing down her back. Her features looked almost human, until the elegant pointed ears revealed she was not. Kane recognized her instantly. Queen Lethira of Lyrison. He immediately looked away. Looking at royalty was a good way to ruin your day. Unfortunately, the queen had stopped walking. Kane didn't notice at first. He was busy arguing with the fruit vendor about whether mild digestive paralysis counted as a side effect. Then the vendor froze. The people behind Kane froze. The noise disappeared. Slowly, Kane turned around. The queen was no longer across the market. She stood only a few steps away. Her guards murmured nervously, hands near weapons. But the queen wasn't looking at Kane's face. Her gaze was fixed on his neck. Specifically, on the faded tattoo partially visible above his collar. A simple mark. Old numbers. Old lines. Meaningless to most people. The queen went completely still. Then she stepped closer. The guards protested. She ignored them. Her breathing had changed now. Uneven. Controlled, but barely. Kane felt a cold prickle crawl down his spine. Up close, the queen looked less like a ruler, and more like someone staring at a ghost. Finally, she spoke. Her voice echoed across the silent market. "I owe you my life, human." Kane blinked. He glanced around, then pointed at himself. "Pretty sure you've got the wrong guy." Her eyes lifted slowly to meet his. "You bear his mark." Kane rubbed the back of his neck. "This?" he said. "Just a tattoo." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "No." Her gaze sharpened. "That mark belonged to the man who saved me." The queen took one step closer and said quietly, "He died protecting me." Then her guards surrounded Kane. "And now," she said, "you're coming with me." Kane had been escorted in many ways during his life. Arrested, threatened, once politely bribed to leave a station before someone important noticed him. But this was new. The queen's guards treated him with ceremonial precision, walking beside him like he was a fragile diplomatic object. Kane kept his hands in his jacket pockets. "Just to clarify," he said as they moved through the crowd, "is this the part where I disappear quietly?" No one answered. That was not encouraging. They reached a sleek transport waiting near the palace shuttle lanes. Queen Lethira entered first. Kane followed reluctantly. The doors sealed with a whisper. The transport lifted smoothly into the air, carried by gravitic fields so gentle they barely hummed. Below them, the capital city unfolded. Layered towers, moving sky platforms, traffic gliding through the air like silent insects. Lyrison was beautiful in a controlled way, the kind of world where chaos had been politely removed centuries ago. Kane leaned toward the window. "Nice place," he muttered. Across from him, the queen hadn't looked away since they left the market. Up close, her features were sharper, older than they first appeared. Not aged, just tired. "You resemble him," she said finally. Kane raised an eyebrow. That's worrying considering I don't know who him is. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You truly do not know? Nope. He leaned back casually. If this is about unpaid taxes or military service, I'd like to file a complaint early. For the first time, the corner of her mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. He was a human medic, she said. 15 cycles ago. Kane went still. He wore that mark. Her gaze flicked to the tattoo on Kane's neck again. My father wore it, Kane said quietly. The transport grew silent. Queen Lethira inhaled slowly. He kept me alive in a prison camp. Kane's stomach tightened. He shared his food. He treated enemies and allies alike. And when the prisoners escaped, her voice softened. He stayed behind so the rest of us could run. Kane stared out the window. That sounds like him, he said quietly. The transport began descending toward the palace. Lethira studied him carefully. For 15 years, she said, I wondered if he had family. Kane rubbed the tattoo again. Well, he said, you found one. The transport doors opened. But before Kane could step out, the Queen said something that made his blood run cold. You are not here as a prisoner. You are here because I owe a debt. And on Lyrison? She looked directly at him. Debts are never ignored. The palace of Lyrison didn't feel like a home. It felt like history made of stone. The air was cleaner inside. Cooler. Almost charged with energy. Kane noticed immediately that the floors glowed softly under his footsteps. He lifted one foot. The light followed. Well, he muttered, at least the floor knows I exist. Servants appeared from side corridors with unsettling timing. Not rushing. Not hesitating. Just appearing. Each bowed to the Queen, then paused awkwardly when they noticed Kane. A human drifter in a worn jacket did not fit palace protocol. Kane nodded politely. The universal gesture of someone who had no idea what the correct etiquette was. Queen. Lethira led him through curved corridors where the walls subtly shifted shape. Kane stared at one panel that seemed to breathe. Is the palace alive? He asked. In limited ways, she replied. Great, Kane muttered. I always wanted to be judged by architecture. They entered a quiet chamber overlooking the city. This room felt different, less ceremonial, more personal. Star charts were etched into the walls. The lighting was warm. Lethira gestured toward a chair. Kane sat carefully. The seat adjusted instantly. Oh, he said. That's dangerously comfortable. The Queen studied him with quiet intensity. You are very different from your father. Kane leaned back. I hope so. Otherwise, we've got a cloning problem. A soft huff escaped her. Almost laughter. She activated a holographic projector. A prison facility appeared above the table. Cold, metallic, orbiting a dead moon. That is where we met, she said. Kane's throat tightened. He told terrible jokes there, she added quietly. Kane smiled faintly. Definitely him. She turned to face him. I summoned you because I owe a debt. Kane shrugged. I didn't send the bill. That does not matter. Her eyes sharpened. On Lyrison, survival binds people. Kane looked out the window at the enormous city below. My father didn't save people expecting repayment. Perhaps not, she said. But I rule a world because he chose kindness. Kane slowly nodded. Fair point. Silence settled between them. Finally, she spoke again. You may leave whenever you wish. Kane blinked. That's surprisingly reasonable. But she added quietly, I ask one thing. Kane sighed. There's always a request. Her voice softened. Stay long enough for me to understand the man who saved my life. Kane rubbed the tattoo again. Careful, he said. You might not like the answers. Her gaze didn't waver. I already know the hardest one. Kane raised an eyebrow. What's that? She looked directly at him. That the man who saved me never lived to see what he changed. But outside the palace, news of a human carrying the mark of the prison medic had already begun spreading. And across Lyrison, powerful people were starting to ask a dangerous question. What exactly had the Queen just brought into her palace? Kane learned very quickly that palaces watched people. Not openly, not aggressively, but everywhere he walked, someone's eyes followed. Servants, advisors, guards pretending not to stare. By the third corridor, Kane leaned toward one of the guards escorting him. Just out of curiosity, he whispered, Is there a betting pool about whether I survive the week? The guard didn't answer, which Kane interpreted as yes. They reached a large circular chamber filled with floating displays and layered seats, arranged like an arena. The Royal Council. Perfect, Kane sighed. I knew the peaceful planet thing was a lie. Council members turned toward him as he entered. Most were Lyrisan natives, tall, elegant, sharp-featured. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to open distrust. Queen Lethira stood at the center of the room. One counselor spoke immediately. This human should not be here. Kane raised a hand. Technically, I agree. Lethira ignored the interruption. He stays. Another counselor leaned forward, eyes narrowing. You invite instability into the palace. Instability, Kane said. I'm literally just a guy buying coolant. The counselor pointed at Kane's neck. You carry the mark of the prison medic. The room murmured. Kane rubbed the tattoo again. Yeah, well, he said, he was my father. That shut them up. Lethira stepped forward. My survival, and by extension this throne, exists because of that man. The counselor's voice sharpened. Debts do not override political reality. Reality, Lethira replied calmly, is that kindness built this peace. Kane shifted awkwardly. I feel like I should apologize for existing. A few council members almost smiled. Almost, but the tension in the room didn't disappear. If anything, it grew. Finally, the senior counselor spoke. If enemies learn the Queen shelters the son of that prisoner. His eyes hardened. They will test our resolve. Kane sighed. They already are, aren't they? Lethira didn't answer. That was answer enough. At that exact moment, an alarm echoed through the palace, and every guard in the chamber reached for their weapons. The palace alarms didn't scream. They hummed. Low. Controlled. Like a predator waking up, Kane watched guards instantly shift formation around the Queen. Okay, he said slowly. That doesn't sound like a fire drill. A tactical display appeared in the air above the council chamber. Red indicators flashed across the palace perimeter. Unauthorized drones detected, a guard reported. The council erupted in arguments. Sabotage. Assassination. Testing our defenses. Kane rubbed his neck. Or someone really hates meetings. Lethira turned toward him. You should leave. Now? Yes. Kane stood. Great timing. But before he could take 2 steps, the palace ceiling exploded. Metal fragments rained down. A sleek attack drone dropped through the breach like a blade. Guards opened fire instantly. Energy bolts slammed into its armored shell. The machine rotated mid-air and unleashed a burst of plasma. 2 guards hit the floor. Kane swore. Okay, that's definitely an assassination attempt. The drone turned, its targeting sensors locking directly onto the Queen. Everyone reacted at once. Too late. The weapon began charging. Kane didn't think. He grabbed the nearest chair and threw it. The heavy palace furniture smashed directly into the drone's stabilizers. The machine jerked sideways. The plasma shot fired, missing the Queen by inches and blasting a hole in the far wall. Guards swarmed the drone and destroyed it seconds later. Silence fell over the chamber. Every council member stared at Kane. Kane slowly lowered his hands. I liked that chair. Lethira looked at him differently now. Not just as a reminder of the past, but as something else entirely. A human who reacted faster than politics. Then the tactical display updated. And the guard said something that made the entire room go cold. That was only the first drone. More are entering the city. The palace command center lit up with tactical projections. Drones swarmed across the capital skyline. Dozens of them. Maybe more. Kane stared at the display. Yeah, that's not about me throwing a chair. A counselor spoke sharply. This is a coordinated strike. An enemy test, another added. Lethira folded her arms. They expected weakness. Her eyes shifted toward Kane. Instead, they saw something else. Kane raised a finger. If that something else is me getting shot at, I'd like a refund. Guards moved quickly through the command room, preparing defensive grids. Kane leaned closer to the projection. Those drones aren't military. The room went quiet. A defense officer frowned. You recognize the design? Kane nodded slowly. Yeah. Smugglers use modified versions. A counselor scoffed. You are suggesting criminals attack the royal palace? Kane shook his head. No. He zoomed the projection. These drones are cheap. Disposable. Expendable. He looked up. Which means someone didn't send an army. They sent bait. The counselors exchanged uneasy looks. Lethira's voice dropped. Bait for what? Kane pointed to the palace. For you, and for the guy everyone now knows as the son of the prison medic. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Then Kane sighed. Congratulations. You just made me famous. Lethira stepped closer, voice steady. Then we adapt. Kane raised an eyebrow. You say that like you have a plan. She met his gaze. I do. Kane groaned. That's never good news for me. But far beyond the capital, someone watched the palace through distant surveillance, and when they saw Kane Merrick survive the attack, they issued a new order. Capture the human alive. Kane discovered something uncomfortable about being important. People stopped treating you like a person. They started treating you like an event waiting to happen. The palace security team relocated him to a fortified wing within the hour. Guards were posted outside every corridor intersection, their armor humming quietly with active shielding. Kane looked at the door of his new room. Just to confirm, he said to the captain of the guard, this is protective custody, not a fancy prison. The captain didn't blink. Both can appear similar. Great, Kane muttered. Inside the room, Queen Lethira stood near the window overlooking the city. The skyline glowed beneath the evening sky, patrol craft gliding silently between towers. You handled the drone well, she said. Kane leaned against the wall. I threw furniture. You acted, she corrected. He shrugged. Humans are good at reacting badly to things trying to kill them. Lethira studied him for a moment. Someone now believes you matter. Kane laughed softly. That's unfortunate. She turned back toward the city. The attackers knew about you quickly. Meaning? Meaning, she said quietly, they are watching us closely. Kane's expression faded slightly. Yeah, I was afraid of that. Silence settled between them. Then Kane asked the question that had been sitting in his mind since the attack. My father. Lethira looked at him. Did he ever say who captured you? Her eyes darkened. No, but he feared someone. Kane nodded slowly. Then whoever sent those drones might be connected. The Queen didn't respond immediately, but the tension in her shoulders answered for her. Finally, she said softly, if that is true, then the past we survived may not be finished with us. Kane exhaled slowly. Fantastic. High above the city, a stealth vessel adjusted its orbit, and its commander smiled. The human is still alive, he said. Good. Prepare the capture team. The palace security chief didn't like Kane. Kane could tell. The man watched him the way soldiers watched unpredictable equipment. You move too casually, the chief said as they walked through the defensive command center. I've survived worse, Kane replied. That is not reassuring. The city surveillance feeds filled a massive curved display. Drones destroyed earlier were being analyzed piece by piece. Kane leaned forward. See that? A technician enlarged one fragment. Hidden beneath the drone plating was a small insignia, a twisted spiral symbol. Lethira went still. I know that mark, she whispered. Kane glanced at her. That's not good, is it? Her voice hardened. No. The security chief looked between them. What is it? Lethira's gaze remained locked on the symbol. The prison facility where I was held. Her hands tightened. That mark belonged to the organization that ran it. The room went silent. Kane felt a slow chill crawl down his spine. You're telling me, he said carefully, the people who ran that prison camp are still active? Lethira nodded. They were never officially identified. And now, Kane said, they're here. The security chief swore quietly. If they are targeting the Queen. They aren't, Kane interrupted. Everyone looked at him. Kane pointed to the drone debris. They targeted the Queen first. But the moment they saw me survive, he rubbed the tattoo on his neck. The mission changed. Lethira's eyes narrowed slightly. They want you. Kane sighed. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. Far above Lyrisan's atmosphere, a transport ship detached from the stealth vessel. And inside it, a squad of heavily armored soldiers prepared for descent. Kane couldn't sleep. Palace ceilings projected calm star fields meant to soothe guests. But tonight the stars felt like watchers. He sat on the edge of the bed, boots already on. Just in case. Some instincts never turned off. Then the palace lights flickered. Kane looked up immediately. That's new. A second later, the alarm hummed again. Lower this time. More urgent. His door burst open as guards rushed in. Mr. Merrick, one said sharply. We need to move. Kane stood. Let me guess. More drones. The guard shook his head grimly. Worse. The palace shook slightly as something struck the outer shield. The tactical display in the corridor lit up. Multiple intruders, inside the defensive perimeter. Kane frowned. Wait, inside? Yes. That's impossible, Kane said. The guard didn't answer. Because down the hallway, a section of the wall exploded inward. Armored soldiers dropped through the breach with terrifying speed. Not drones. Not machines. Professional fighters. Energy rifles opened fire instantly. Palace guards returned fire as the corridor erupted into chaos. Kane dove behind a support column. Okay, he shouted. That's definitely a kidnapping attempt. A soldier's visor locked onto him. Target confirmed. The soldier raised a weapon. Kane grabbed a loose metal panel from the wall and slammed it into the attacker's rifle. Just as it fired, the blast scorched the ceiling instead of his chest. Guards tackled the intruder seconds later, but more soldiers poured through the breach. Too many, and they were moving directly toward Kane. Across the palace, Queen Lethera saw the tactical feed and realized the truth. The attackers weren't trying to kill the human. They were trying to take him alive. The corridor had turned into a battlefield. Energy bolts burned across polished palace walls. Guards took cover behind support pillars while the attackers advanced with brutal efficiency. Kane crouched behind a shattered panel, heart pounding. Okay, he muttered, this is officially above my pay grade. A palace guard slid beside him, weapon raised. They want you alive, the guard said. Yeah, I heard that part, Kane replied. Another blast tore through the hallway. More attackers dropped through the breach. Their armor was heavier than the palace guards. Their movements precise and practiced. Professional. One of them stepped forward and activated a wrist device. A holographic scan passed over Kane. Confirmed, the soldier said calmly. Target is the medic's descendant. Kane blinked. Descendant? The soldier's helmet turned slightly. Yes. Kane sighed. Look, technically that's correct, but... The soldier raised a weapon. We require the genetic archive. Kane frowned. The what? Before the soldier could answer, a voice cut through the chaos. Stand down. The attackers hesitated. Queen Lethera entered the corridor surrounded by reinforcements. Her presence hit the room like gravity. You will leave this palace, she said coldly. The armored soldier tilted his helmet. You misunderstand, Your Majesty. We are not here for war. He gestured toward Kane. We are here for history. Kane slowly stood. Could someone explain why everyone suddenly thinks my DNA is important? The soldier answered calmly. Because your father wasn't just a medic. Kane froze. He was the only human to survive our experiments. The soldier's visor glowed. And we believe you inherited what he became. The attackers retreated. Not defeated. Simply finished. Within minutes, the palace fell silent again. But the silence was heavier than the battle. Kane stood in the command chamber, staring at the recording. Taken from the attacker's armor. His father appeared in the footage. Thin, exhausted, still treating prisoners. They experimented on him, Kane said quietly. Lethera nodded. They tested resilience, adaptation, survival limits. Kane watched his father share food with another prisoner. He didn't fight them, Kane murmured. No, Lethera said. He endured them. The footage ended with the prison escape, his father staying behind, holding a door while prisoners fled. Kane rubbed his neck where the tattoo sat. So the tattoo, it was a medical identifier, Lethera said. He marked himself so prisoners could find him. Kane let out a slow breath. Of course he did. A council member spoke carefully. If the attackers are correct, your father survived procedures meant to break biology. Kane looked up. And you think I inherited something? The counselor nodded. Possibly. Kane laughed once. I hate surprises like that. Lethera stepped closer. You are not obligated to carry his burden. Kane thought about the prison, the experiments, the kindness that survived them. Then he said quietly, I think he'd be annoyed if I ignored it. But far away in orbit, the enemy commander sent one final message. Begin Phase 2. Observe the human. Morning returned to Lyrason peacefully. as if the night battle had never happened. Kane stood once again on the palace landing platform beside his ship. It looked exactly the same. Old, reliable, unimpressed by royal drama. Queen Lethira stood beside him. No guards, no ceremony. The council believes the attackers will return, she said. Kane nodded. Probably. They will want you. Yeah. Silence stretched between them. You could stay, she said quietly. Kane looked out at the city, the place his father had unknowingly helped protect. It's tempting, he admitted. But I'm a drifter. Lethira studied him carefully. Your father saved this world without asking for anything. Kane smiled faintly. That sounds like him. The ship's engines hummed to life. Kane turned toward the ramp, then paused. You know, he said, those attackers might be right. She raised an eyebrow. In what way? Kane tapped the tattoo on his neck. Maybe I did inherit something. Not experiments. Not genetics. He looked back at her. Stubborn kindness. Lethira's ears angled back slightly, a sign of quiet gratitude. That legacy changed my world, she said. Kane climbed the ramp. Then keep using it. The hatch sealed behind him. Moments later, his ship lifted into the sky. Through the viewport, Kane saw the Queen standing alone on the platform. Not waiting, not asking, simply watching the stars. Kane set a course into open space. For the first time, the tattoo on his neck didn't feel like a mystery. It felt like a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the galaxy was a human who refused to stop being kind.